Chess.com daily puzzles. Let's try to solve them together. All 7 in a row, one by one, for the week of April 14th. Okay, so we're starting with Monday, April 14th. Black to move. Usually Monday's puzzles are the easiest, but we need to be careful. We see that there are really weak light squares around the kings, and we have a light square bishop, so somehow we should use the bishop. If the pawn was on h3, rook c1 checkmate, but the pawn is not in h3. But the rook c1 looks like a first move in this puzzle, because other than that, rook would take on f7 and white would have an advantage. So let's start with that. Rook c1 check, correct. And I guess h3 doesn't help because king would escape on f3. But if we play bishop e4, and that's correct, then we can win a rook. Let's take a rook, and puzzle solved. All right, Tuesday. Black to move. Black to move. So if we look at this position, what do we see? Black is without a knight. Without a knight. Can we somehow get the material back? Not sure. But how about looking at the king? It's really pressured by both rooks here and doesn't have many moves. So for example, if we check here, the king cannot escape on e2 because there is a queen here and a rook. On the other hand, bishop g2 would simply prevent us from checkmating, but then we can take on e1. Would that be a solution? So what I'm suggesting is bishop h3 check. And next move would be queen takes e1 with the checkmate. And I think that should be correct. Let's try it. Yes, and checkmate. All right, we do 2 in a row. Wednesday, April 16th. White to move. Looking at the position, white has black has an extra exchange, one extra rook for a knight. And what do we need to do here? So let's take a look. If anything is under attack, if anything is loose in black's position, bishop on g6 is protected by the knight. What I see here is a pawn on c7. If we somehow can support the queen, we can possibly checkmate on c7, and the support of the queen can be done by the knight. So one move could be knight b5, or maybe even stronger, knight e6. If we play knight e6, we're attacking the rook, we're attacking the bishop, we're attacking the checkmate. And I think that is a good first move to consider here. So let's go. Knight e6, not correct. Not correct. Hold on a second, but how about the queen on e4? It doesn't have many moves. It doesn't have many moves. So if we attack the queen, does it even have anywhere to go? How can we attack the queen? We can attack the queen with the bishop from c2, but then queen takes d5. Or we can attack the queen with knight d2. And I don't think black have any moves with the queen. I think that could be a solution. Oh no, hold on a second. Queen d3 would be the move, but then we'll play bishop c4, and I think that would be capturing the queen. So let's try it. Knight d2, correct, and bishop c4, and we take the queen. Okay, that was a little more difficult, but on the second attempt we did it, and now we're going to April 17th, Thursday. Black to move. Black to move. We can immediately see that the white king is in the middle of the board. Definitely not safe. We have a queen. We have one bishop. We have another bishop that can join an attack. And I believe that would be somewhere in solution, somewhere in between those three pieces. So those three pieces would have to be part of the solution. And we need to start, I guess, with the check, something forceful. The move that would force white to move the king. The only checks I see are bishop a4 and queen d3. So let's take a look at bishop a4, then b3. Do we have a continuation? Continuation would be queen d3 check, king c1, which is the only move, which is always good, check, and the only move for white, and then we'll finish with bishop a3 checkmate, and I think that's a solution. Let's start. Yes, good. Queen d3 and bishop a3, and that's a checkmate. Very good. We did Thursday, Friday, April 18th. Again, black to move. We immediately can see that there is weakness on the first rank. So it's tempting to check queen e1, and then rook takes e1, rook takes e1, and it's basically a checkmate. And the problem with this move, I see that after queen e1 check, white can play queen f1. And we really don't achieve much, because if we take the queen, rook will take our queen, and the position remains equal. We have two rooks against two rooks, bishop against bishop, queen against queen. So there has to be something else. Unless I don't see a continuation after queen e1 and queen f1. So let's take another look at this position. If we just attack the queen with bishop f5, I don't think it really does much. The queen will just move away and protect the square e1. Could it be a crazy move, rook takes a3? Very much so, because if queen takes a3, then queen e1, and that would be a checkmate, because there wouldn't be a move queen f1. Rook takes a3, then again checkmate here, and pawn takes, then we are taking the rook on a1. Well, at least that's a move that looks really great. So let's try it. Yes, very good. And now we are checkmating the opponent king on the first rank. So that was Friday. Next one is Saturday. White to move. And here it has to be a checkmate, because the black king is very vulnerable, doesn't have any moves. We can see that the bishop really strikes on this diagonal, and the pawn is great, protecting the square h7. So the black king is really under pressure, and now we have to find a way to check the king, because queen takes h5 doesn't work, because queen would take on h5. So the only other check is queen h6. The only move for black, and again, it's always good when the opponent has the only move, would be g takes h6. Then we have a g7 check. That's already something. And then another only move for black would be king h7. And then I'm thinking take the rook with the knight. And that would be a solution. All right, that's wonderful. Looks correct and looks absolutely magnificent. Queen h6 check. Yes. G7 check. Yes. Take with the knight, not the queen, with the knight. Check. Yes. And now we're using finally this bishop. Rook g8 checkmate, and the knight takes care of the square h7. Very nice. And now probably the most difficult puzzle. Usually Sundays are most difficult, and this is April 20th, Sunday. Black king is again in a vulnerable position on h8, but nothing really threatens him at the moment. And we also have to keep in mind that if white does not have any forcing moves here, let's say if we play h6 or whatever. Then there is a pretty much checkmate on queen takes b2. I mean, it's not a checkmate, but obviously we don't want to allow black to play queen takes b2 or bishop takes b2 with a check, because more checks will come. The king would go here, and another check from the rook. So it's gonna be probably a checkmate very soon, or bishop b4 check to the king. So we need to make a forceful move that black would have to respond with something rather than taking the pawn on b2. So we have to check the opposing king, and the only check I see in this position is knight g6. So that has to be the first move, and that's correct. Very good. The second move has to be to take this pawn with discovery attack from the rook. I think that's pretty much the only thing we can do here. Yes, and now I think we have a well-known puzzle theme that you will checkmate the opponent with the queen from h7. And in order to get the queen on h7, in this particular case, you would need to sacrifice pretty much every piece on your position. So let's say if you eliminate those two pieces, the rook and the bishop, then the checkmate would be performed rook h8 check, king takes h8, queen will go to h1, king has to move back on g8, and we're going to checkmate on h7. So that would have been the checkmate. But as long as we have those two pieces, we just have to eliminate them and allow the queen to get to h1. And I think we can pretty much do it. Bishop c4 check, and that's correct. Rook h8, king takes. Now we go rook h1. Now we go rook h8. Now we involve the queen. So we sacrificed all our pieces except the queen. And as promised, there wouldn't be a checkmate on a square h7. So we did it. We solved 5 out of 7, and then the other 2 we solved on the second attempt. The first move was wrong, but then we eventually solved the puzzles. 5 out of 7. Hopefully you did much better. Hopefully you did all 7. And maybe some of them you did much quicker than I did. And we'll be here in a week to solve 7 more puzzles for the week of April 21st. Thank you for watching.